Running back Eddie Lee Ivery was drafted in the first round of the 1979 NFL Draft out of Georgia Tech. He came to Green Bay with great expectations. Unfortunately, injuries on the field shortened his career, while addiction nearly cost him his life. But before Georgia Tech and Green Bay, Eddie was raised right by a grandmother who was his biggest influence early on.
Oh, absolutely. My grandmother was like my father, my grandfather, my mother. She just was the backbone of my family, because I grew up around three women: my grandmother, my mother, and my sister. And when grandmama speak, you better listen, because if you don't do what she asks you to do, you're gonna have shoes flying your way. Anything that's in her sight, she's gonna get your attention. I think that helped me along the way to pay attention in school. So when I got the opportunity to go to a school like Georgia Tech, my grandmother had already prepared me by paying attention.
Pepper Rogers, your coach at Georgia Tech, once called you the greatest football player he's ever seen. Tell me about that relationship. Did you have a close one with Pepper Rogers, or how did that make you feel?
Absolutely. I think me and Coach Roger, we kind of bonded the first time that we met, because he came down to my high school and he knew how much I loved playing basketball. And so he comes out on the court and he challenged me with a long range shot, because it wasn't 3-point back in those days, but it was at the distance of long range. And lo and behold, that man, he beat me. And I was unbelievable. Yes, he beat me at a game that I really enjoy playing a lot. But we kind of bonded right off the bat. And when I saw that he not only cared for me as a football player, but he really generally cared for me as a person. Because one of the first things Coach Rogers said to me, he said, "Eddie Lee," he said, "we want you to graduate from Georgia Tech." That was his word. Lo and behold, when I finished my career here with Green Bay, when I got drafted, I didn't graduate. When my 9 years was up with Green Bay Packers, I went back to my high school. I was down there coaching and coaching my high school, and I get a call back from Georgia Tech, and by way of Dick Bestwick and Pepper Rogers, say, "Eddie Lee, after 9-10 years, get your butt back up here and graduate." So he held to his promise 10 years later.
10 years after you left Georgia Tech?
Yes. They put me back on scholarship, and I was able to graduate and get my degree.
Wow. Degree in?
Industrial management.
That's phenomenal. That's someone who's true to his word, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the best thing that I think he did for me to get my career rolling is that Coach Roger has been running the wishbone all his life. While in UCLA, he came down to Georgia Tech. He implemented the wishbone down there for my 3 years. And we were having kind of, mediocre season and not really good season. And my last year, my 4th year, he brought me in the office and he said, "Eddie Lee, we're gonna put you in the I formation." And when he did, that gave me an opportunity to showcase the talent that God had blessed me with by running the I only 1 year.
Wow.
I wish I go back and I said, "Oh, Coach Roger, why didn't you make that decision in about 3 years?"
But you were still
running the I formation for 1 year, and still be put in a position and to be the first-round draft choice for the Green Bay Packers was an awesome thing that he did for me in my career.
Yeah, I think when you left school as the all-time leading rusher at
Absolutely.
Georgia Tech, and then your first-round draft choice of the Green Bay Packers, Bart Starr calls you on the phone. What did you think?
Actually, it was Zeke Barkowski.
Oh, was Zeke?
Yeah, Zeke. I was out in California, and of course, I didn't know who Zeke Barkowski was, because I didn't know who the running back coach was. And here I am waiting on the Falcons, because I had been promised by the Falcons that if I was still around in the first round, that they was going to draft me. Well, that didn't happen. And so I'm kind of devastated, wondering that, well, who else considered me as their #1 pick? I don't know. And sure enough, I guess I was the best of the rest that were left on the board. But no, Zeke called me, and it was a beautiful thing to be able to play for an organization that I watched all throughout my years of growing up.
Selected with the 15th pick in the 1979 draft, he was to be the bell cow and coach Bart Starr's offense, but not right away. You see, the Packers had Turdell Middleton ahead of him, so Eddie Lee moved to fullback.
And my thinking was, well, how are they going to put both of us in there? Well, I come to find out later, well, Turdell was going to be the tailback and I was going to be the fullback. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I just got moved to tailback last year. Now you want me to move again to fullback. And of course I did, and I think that probably kind of contributed because I had to put on some weight, and I never played over 195 pounds. And I think when I got to Green Bay, I was asked to put on some weight to play fullback. And of course that cruciate game in Chicago on that turf, I tore my tenio cruciate ligament.
You had two major injuries, I believe both left knee injuries,
yes.
in 2 of your first 3 years in the league.
Yes.
And back then, knee surgery wasn't quite what it is today. It was pretty much major. There's a career that could have been tremendous, and yet the injury situation. Do you feel like your career was a little unfulfilled because of those injuries?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it was unfulfilled because of the strike season that we had, because I think at that time, I was pretty much recovering from my knee injury. I came back in 1980, I believe, and almost had 1,000 yards, 900+ yard rushing. And then, of course, that 81 was devastating, same place, same field, same knee, hurt again. And I think that when that happened, and we came back that 82 season, I started listening to the critics about how running backs are never the same after having not only one surgery, but after going through 2 knee surgeries, they'll never be the same. And so I started listening to that, and I began to get scared, and I began to be fearful of my career, and I started making some bad choices. And then when we had the strike, it gave me an opportunity to go out there and do whatever I needed to do to ease the feeling that I had of, oh man, my career's about over.
You fought the good fight with one of the greatest demons anyone could take on, and that is substance abuse, that's drug abuse.
Absolutely.
And is that where it kind of began? That part of your career where you're wondering, can I ever make it back?
Absolutely, without a doubt. That's when it began, because when we had that strike season out, that gave me opportunity to go out and not be a part of an organization that's trying to prepare for the football team. So I had a lot of part of the time, I would hate to put it like that, on our hands. And I truly believe, I'll never look back over and say, if God has done this, because it is what it is. I think I had to go through what I had to go through for me to be the person that I am today. But when I did go through it, that I realized that, wow, what could have been? What could have been? That's a question that you and I would never know. But I knew this. I knew that when I got on that football field, I gave it all I had. I gave it all I had.
There's no
Every
question.
play. I'm coaching now, and when I tell the kids, they ask, Eddie, how you do it? I said, you go out there and you run one play at a time, and you run at full speed. That's all you do. And whatever talent that you've been blessed with, you're going to make the adjustment to who you are. Just run full speed. And that's how I did it. Of course, the game is played a little different now. So, I think if I were playing these days, I might well last, instead of 9 years, I might have about 15 years.
Yeah. No, you had tremendous talent, Eddie. You were a franchise running back coming out of college. It just didn't work out with the injuries, and then you battled the substance abuse. I want to go back to 1983, start of the season. You guys had come off a playoff win over St. Louis. But there were high hopes for the '83 team, but you were battling a cocaine issue. And Bart Starr called you into his office. I can't think of anyone who would be more compassionate than him, and Bart later lost a son to addiction. So he knew what was. Tell me about that meeting and about Bart Starr and the way he handled that meeting with you.
Well, he brought me in, and obviously, we had random drug tests, and I had failed the drug test. And so he brought me in, and he specifically asked me, was I okay? And he was looking at me, it almost looked like he had tears in his eyes because he knew that I was not being honest with him. And I said, yes, sir, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, sir. And as we began to talk, I think I had got tired of playing game with myself and playing game with the Green Bay Packer organization. So I got brutal honest with Coach Starr. I said, Coach Carl, please help me. And for a man, could have ended my career right then and there because I had failed the drug test. But instead, he chose to help by allowing me to go seek help. And when I did, it allowed me to play 5 more years.
Yeah. 30 years later, it's still emotional, isn't it?
Well, people don't understand that Bart to save my career playing professional football, Coach Starr saved my life because I could have been going out there using and that could have been it. But when he gave me the opportunity to seek help and to realize that that football is only part of life. That's not who you are, Eddie Lee. That's something that you're good at, you're doing, but that's not who you are. But all my life, that's all I've done. So I had no other identity whatsoever. And that identity was about to become one of those homeless, sleepless addicts out in the street if it had not been for Bart Starr.
There was still a fight ahead, though. You still have many years ahead to battle that addiction,
absolutely.
didn't you?
The battle was still there until when I moved to Tampa. My family left. My family had got tired of my craziness, and so they decided to go to separation, rightfully so, because of my children's safety. October 28, 1998 is when I called the NFL Players Association, and I asked them, and I cried out to them. I said, man, look, can y'all please help me? Once again, I'm crying out. And I've tried several different things. Georgia Tech, he came in and allowed me to play, go to Peachtree Charter Rehab Center right there in Atlanta. They was trying to help. But one thing that I found out through addiction, you just can't help nobody who don't want to be helped. I was finally sick and tired of being sick. I called the NFL Player Association. They called me down there in Atlanta, Georgia. From Washington, D.C., called me in Thompson. And from Thompson, I went to Atlanta, and the rest is history. Here I sit for you here before you today, what, 22, 23? You're so surprised by the grace of God.
Wow. It's amazing when you battle something like that. It's you. It's really you.
Yeah.
I mean, the help helps, but no, it's really you, isn't
it? Absolutely. It really comes more down to, or do you really want to get help? Are you really sick and tired of being sick? And it's come down to a personal decision. And you eventually know. You know. Don't let nobody tell you that an addict that he don't know. Yeah, he know. You know when you are sick and tired. It's just a matter of swallowing that ego, that pride, and say, okay, I'm no longer trying to save my face. I'm trying to save my life today. Now, you can say whatever you want to say about Eddie Lee Ivery and his career as an addict. Right now, I'm trying to save my life, and by the grace of God.
The strength of a grandmother and the discipline of football helped him beat his greatest opponent. Today, Eddie Lee Ivery is back at his hometown of Thompson, Georgia, where his experience in both football and life make him an invaluable coach and mentor to the young people in his community.